Members of the board, are we ready? Carl, are we ready?
Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to call to order the 930th meeting of the Board of Directors of Alexandria Sanitation Authority, now known as AlexRenew. Members of the board, could I have a motion to approve the agenda as it appears?
So move.
Second,
Second?
all in favor?
Aye.
Madam Secretary, are there any members of the public?
No members.
Members of the public. Let's jump right into the consent agenda. Minutes from the public hearing on May 17th. And while you're there, take a look at the minutes of our meeting on May 20th. When we're ready, we'll approve them with a single motion.
I move to approve both sets of minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Moving right to some administrative items. Board calendar on tab 3. Carl or Madam Secretary, anything worth pointing out on the calendar?
Well, scheduled. Audit. That's new. Just a reminder that we've got Dr. Our first open house.
Any updates from finance and audit other than the budget today?
It's the end of a many step.
Many steps. Governance committee? Nothing? It's an update, board elections coming up in our July meeting. We'll talk offline about slate of candidates for the leadership of the board, all the committees. So that's coming up in July. Safety month. June is safety month. Mr. Carl, do you want to say a few words and then we'll share our stories?
Sure. So at last month's meeting, our safety manager, AlexRenew, presented an overview of safety, mentioned safety month ongoing. We're in our third week of safety month challenges at AlexRenew. This week, he also shared one of the behavioral-based programs that we've been using at the organization called Safe Start. He shared his Safe Start story, and in an effort to show solidarity with staff, we asked if the board would be interested in sharing a Safe Start story to kick off tonight's meeting. So pretty much every day of the week, 7:30 in the morning, we kick off our week with a Safe Start story at our morning meeting, and wanted to see if any board members were interested in sharing a Safe Start story. If not, we've got canned Safe Start stories from staff.
Let me kick it off, but I'd like the other board members to think of their own stories. By the way, I think Safe Start is a great program. Policies are good, but being conscious up here on safety is much more important. No policy is going to protect you if you do something stupid. And I have a stupid story. I'm a do-it-yourselfer. I've got all kinds of tools. One of my tools is a chop box, a miter saw. And those of you who have a miter saw, there's that red circle. You should never put your hand inside the red circle when you're cutting something. Well, Boy Genius here had a little piece of wood, and I thought I'd just hold it real close to that blade when I chopped it. And naturally, the blade caught it, it kicked, and fortunately, I got my hand out of there in time. But I could have had a much different story, right? And my state of mind at that time was exactly like that card you sent around. I was complacent. I was not really thinking about how dangerous that tool is. and I was rushed. And my error was I put my fingers in the line of fire inside the red zone. And I'll never do that again. And the new behavior that I have because of that episode is whenever I use a tool, where are your hands? Where are your hands? One hand maybe on the pistol grip, and the other hand behind your back, but always aware of where your hands are. And prior to that episode, I was just like chopping away. So it's my safe start story. Bill.
Several years ago, we had a dog who we realized if the door was left open, he would run out and run away. And either my daughters or I would say, "Doctor, we usually can't seem to bring him back." He got old, along with the rest of us. And I was out one morning early and came back to the house, and the trash cans were sitting out on the front deck, and I figured I'd put them in the back gate. So I took the dog in the back gate and left the gate open and started to pull the trash can out. And I figured he's old, he's not going to run. Learned three things: that yes, he will still run. Second is that yes, I can still catch him. And the third is that my neighbor across the street has a stone wall in his backyard that's about 2.5 feet tall that you can't see in the dark. My state of mind was I was complacent and tired and a little frustrated and rushed, obviously. And what I learned was that, yes, the dog will still run.
Any other safe start stories?
Well, other than when I was a teenager, I worked with the State Highway Department for 3 summers, and this was when OSHA was just starting. So OSHA was not in anybody's mind. There were many dumb things that I did that were basically unformed male mind. And being like you were told to go drive the dump truck, which I'd never driven before, and just go out and pick up limbs on little narrow streets. And this big thing with 2 axles and I don't know how many gears, and so I went and did it. I never ever should have put my hand up. I've never driven that before, but when the supervisor handed me the keys, there were 20 other people looking at me. They all knew what was going on. He actually couldn't do it. So I did it. I didn't kill anybody. I didn't get hurt, but I was scared the whole day, and I should have said something. From minute one saying, can someone show me, where reverse is on the truck, which axle you're supposed to have in gear. So we got through it, but it's like speak up when somebody asks you to do something that your ego tells you, I want to prove them I can do this, but you really have no business doing it.
That's good.
So my story happened just after we have the safety presentation here. So we have the tendency of always thinking safety when we are in the office or the construction site. And when we get in our home, we think, okay, this is the place I know I can do basically whatever I need to do. So I was coming from upstairs, and my wife was talking to me. And what I was doing is basically trying to talk to her and at the same time checking my text. And I was coming down, and I just hear boom, I fell. And my son was in the room, he came out running to tell me, what happened? I said, what happened? He see me laying down there. So I got up, I felt, at the spot, I didn't feel anything, but the next day, I have really, really sore. So, lesson learned is safety is everywhere, anytime, anywhere. So, but we have just this complacency. We think always going to happen somewhere else. So since then, whenever they are coming down, I always tell them, watch out. My son told me now, nobody can move now in this house. So that's my story. Safety everywhere, anytime, anywhere.
stories. Anybody else?
It's really hard. It's hard to like narrow down the stupid things I've done. I also have fallen down a flight of stairs. I was looking at my phone, but that wasn't the story I was going to tell. I was on a work trip a few years ago, and I had taken a taxi from the airport to the hotel with like some of my coworkers, and they had gotten out of the cab and they were going into the hotel, and I was rushing to catch up with them, and I wasn't paying attention to what I was doing, and I closed my hand in the car door of the taxi and snapped my finger just right in half. So I had to miss the first day of the like work thing, going to the hospital. So that's just one of many grievous injuries I've done to myself. So I don't learn lessons.
What was your state of mind when you did that?
No, it's
Rushed or-
not rush. I was rushing to catch up with them. I was just not paying attention to what I was doing.
Wow.
Yeah,
You didn't save any time, did you?
no.
Aaron or Sharam, you want to jump in?
I,
Don't have to, but if you want.
no, I just, mine are so embarrassing that I can't.
Please,
I've
Come
got,
on.
come on.
I've got some of those.
Yeah, mostly happened during the college years and stuff, as you can imagine.
Yeah, no, definitely a lot of dumb things. Don't go out during a hurricane looking for somewhere to eat, because I've done that before. The hurricane that hit here in what, 2003, I think. So my husband and I were like, we didn't do food prep in advance, and power went out, and we had no way to cook anything. And then it was the eye of the hurricane, and we're like, well, this will be a good time to go out and get some food. We go out in the neighborhood in DC, nothing is open. And we're like, oh yeah, because it's a hurricane, right? And then the winds start picking back up. And we're like, oh, we should go home. And then as we're like driving, like this power line snaps, falls into a car bursts in flames. And then the time it took to get home, there was trees falling down here. This road was blocked. We got home and we ran inside, but I'm trying to think back to the car. It was really something that could have been avoided. Just don't go out in a hurricane was the lesson, and plan ahead, right? Like we were hungry. We could have made food hours before it started. So I don't know. It's not probably, I don't know. That was the only thing that just popped in my head just now is like going out in a hurricane was like the dumbest thing I'd ever done in my life.
Sounds like the state of mind for everybody is complacency and rushed.
Yes.
So, and hungry.
I've
Yeah, good stories.
done that too from Florida. So it's like always a hurricane there.
Mr. Carl, great program, and I think your emphasis and the AlexRenew emphasis on safety is evidenced by the fact that we've had all this construction out here on this very crowded site where heavy equipment is within inches of other heavy equipment, and the safety record has been spotless. So I think the attention to safety is very important. Dealing with human lives here. Very good. So thank you for that. Let's move right into unfinished business. All of this budget related. And Mr. Jenks, since you are chair of the Finance Committee, I'm going to let you handle this part of the agenda.
Thank you. Well, Chairman, members of the public may be watching. The staff presented us the budget back in March after us having some prior discussions and back and forth. It is a voluminous document. It is as a utility. Our budget, we need basically half fees, which are enough to fund the operating budget, to pay our debt service, to keep ourselves financially sound. So it's a very complicated budget. The fact that we have two ways of getting money from customers. One is direct by billing, and second is by contract with Fairfax, and they bill their customers and then pay us. So there are lots of, if you ever did arrows of how all the money comes in and where it goes, and then when it gets here, it comes into this fund and then goes to that fund. it's pretty complicated, but it is a complicated operation. And staff did a wonderful job putting together the budget. We had budget questions, about 25 of them, and they answered them. And the revised budget is here. It's still the same proposed $258 million budget. It's still the same proposed rates. However, the document itself has a chart that says how we're funding all the 10 years of the CIP. That's true. It's an all funds chart that actually shows you every single last penny through all the funds, and still maintains the proposed rate increases, which are necessary in order to kind of fund the basics and keep us, as we'll talk about later, right there, renewal. We've got, everybody's focused on the AlexRenew project, but we basically, that's the fancy thing that's out in the community. They see behind the fence of our facility, we have a lot of old equipment and facilities and things that need to be fixed that cost millions and millions of dollars. So this budget, I think, does a really responsible job of proposing the rates that we need to collect the money, to pay the bills, and to fund really ensuring the future that we need our pollution control requirements, that we're a reliable and available to our customers 24/7. And so with that, it's we have motions in regards to approving the operating capital budget and then the rates.
Thank you. Go ahead. And again, I think it's the scrutiny that Mr. Jenks, that you led. The scrutiny of the budget really gives, I think, the board a lot of confidence in the quality of the budget. So I think you should make the motion to approve the budget.
Recommend the board of directors approve the 26th operating and capital budget.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Right.
Mr. Jenks, you're on a roll. Let's talk about the rates so that they flow naturally from the budget.
Documents, but the one of the things we need to do is approve the rates, and there is a rate document that is in front of you as part of the budget, and it recommends raising the rates, and we see. Staff, you want to jump in here on
Yeah,
on the numbers?
5% rate increase in 26 and 5.7 in 27.
And you should note that because the board is discussing rate structure, we've been discussing it in prior meetings, we will discuss it in depth when we get to the fall. And so that what we listed as the 27 rate increase may be different in the way that it's structured when we get to 27. And there are other uncertainties that may cause it to be different as well. That I propose, I move that we approve the rate increases for 26 and 27.
There's a second.
Second.
Becky, Ms. Hammer got this one.
Okay. Let's have it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the final piece, Mr. Jenks, of course, is the policy. The rate setting policy.
Rate setting policy proposed has been in place for some time. And what is proposed at this point is to amend it for late fees. To put into the policy what our late fee policy has been. It was suspended during COVID, and then we started basically back up with enforcing the collection through either turnoffs or various efforts the staff went through to get people to pay. Late fees is part of the incentive for people to pay, and they were put back in place. And what this policy does is basically just memorialize writing in the rate setting policy what our rate policies are, which is basically a one-time 10% charge on the amount that is 21 days past due.
Very reasonable. Is there a motion there?
Move that the board adopt the revised rate setting policy.
For a second,
Okay.
all in favor?
Uh,
Aye. Well done. And this is the culmination of months of work by staff and the board. So excellent work. Moving right along to new business. Of course, is a job order contract, Mr. Carl. So a few words about that.
Maybe first introduce staff this evening. Just since sitting at the table, just a quick reminder of the board.
Kyle Chan, I'm an engineer here at AlexRenew, the assistant project manager on the Hemorrhage Group project, presenting that. Solids projects, CPT, centric treatment, and work on our current.
Hey, Cronin, Ron Caldwell, and I'm around AlexRenew for about 15 years. As a senior advisor, helping on various projects, help AlexRenew for River Renew, and right now leading with
So back to tab 7. So the board might remember in July, one of the first things we did as staff is we put forth job order contracts to help out our maintenance team catch up on some corrective maintenance work necessary to keep our plant operational. So we executed 3 job order contracts at that time. And then in July of last year, the General Assembly updated the procurement language around job order contracts, which increased the amount of job order contracts from $500,000 to $1 million. And it also increased the term limits from 3 years to a total of 4 years. So at this point, we had 3 job order contractors. 1 was underperforming, 2 were performing well for us. So we made a decision as staff to go out and re-procure our job order contractors this year to, 1, make up for the underperforming job order contractor. A lot of that comes down to building services, and also to renew the contract with their existing 2 if they elected to rebid. So what we did is put out an RFP. It considered 3 wastewater contractors to focus work at the plant, and then 1 building type maintenance contractor to support upgrades necessary for more building services. Elevator is a good example of that. Right? That's not a wastewater type contractor you typically look for. So elevators, we know we have issues with our building out elevators. So we ended up getting 4 proposals. Staff's recommendation this evening is to move forward with executing contracts with all 4 teams. 2 are PC Construction and ACE, who are current 2 job order contractors. The other 2 are new to us, S-Works and the Matthews groups. The Matthews group is the building services job order contractor. S-Works would be the 3rd wastewater contractor. So with that, our recommendation is to allow staff to proceed in entering into job order contracts with these 4 entities. And as we have done over the last 1.5 years, we continue to update the board on a project by project basis in the monthly board report on the job order contract being issued. Around to date, just to give you a rough order of magnitude, around $5.5 million and they through job order contract since we put it in place. It's been a really good program stuff and certainly lighten the load for staff going out from multiple programs. So it's a really nice program the state has set up.
What is your estimate that of the amount of money we'll spend on all four of these contracts over the course of the year?
We took July 2023 to today, we spent about 5.6 million.
Yeah.
Divide that by 2, so you know, 2.5 million a year for all four contracts. We don't see this increasing. We have a backlog of work, but we don't see it as increasing, especially as we get underway with the major upgrades for solids, headworks, and tertiary.
Certainly is an efficient way to do contracting. It's fast.
It's fast because we have them under, it's writing a task order.
Right.
Very similar to the basic ordering agreements we have with our.
Any discussion from the board?
No question. Before that you showcase TMG, the proposal is in place for the building and facility. They were not considered. Well, you evaluate, you guys are coffee, 56 is a film.
They didn't have wastewater experience. So I mean, they're still evaluated for small.
But, I mean, it's a little bit interesting to evaluate maybe certain entities that maybe wastewater specific services, certain issues that could be unique. And that's fine. And you evaluate everybody, their ability to provide wastewater experience. This particular entity doesn't have wastewater experience, but they show well buildings.
Check the
We did. We did. And you know, what ended up happening with the underperforming contractor is, you know, we gave them multiple contracts during the first period of this phase and they weren't following through. So we have the ability to stop issuing task orders to that contract. So we don't need to use, there's no requirement to give them any supplemental work. And what ended up happening is all of that work then got into our wastewater contractor. So then we're competing for building services and wastewater work. So we wanted to try and get a wastewater specific without putting up two separate building specific.
Any other questions? Trump? So motion to approve this.
So moved.
Seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Counselor, was that sufficient? Yeah. I have to read the whole motion. Okay, now a presentation on Headworks. It's gonna be good.
Yeah, so we're trying to do this on a regular basis with the board a month prior to us bringing you an amendment for the guaranteed maximum price. It's going to get a little messy as we move forward with Headworks and the solids project for biosolids project, biosolids specification project, and then on top of that, we'll have the nutrient reduction project, which is tertiary and quantity. So we're trying to do this, you know, as we come up on a GMP amendment, we wanted to come to the board, refresh your memory on the project, and also give you an idea of the schedule for the GMPs. We want to try and then the next month you'll get a memo summarizing what we discussed the previous month when the memo comes to the board for approval for the execution of the contract. That's so feedback would be helpful for us because again, we're talking about 10 GMPs for the two projects, just the solids and the Headworks projects. That's not even counting the tertiary. So it's just trying to keep track of everything. We're trying to come up with a way that works for the board. So this evening, just to refresh your memory, and Mr. Chan will walk through this, we approved the contract construction manager at risk in July 2024 with Alman Shooty to move forward in the Headworks renewal project. Tonight is the first time we're coming to the board to talk through the amendments, so we're going to go do a deep dive on the amendments. We probably won't do this in the future, but Mr. Chan's also going to give you another refresher on what's included in a guaranteed maximum price. So we'll go through that one more time. You've seen the slide. And then from here on forward, we'll continue to, the next two amendments, we'll just bring to you in memo form. And then when we get into the construction phase, we'll try and stop again like this and give you an update of where we stand. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Chan.
Again, my name is Kyle Chan. I'm an engineer here at AlexRenew, and I'm the assistant project manager on the Headworks Renewal Project. And I'll be presenting on that project's the guaranteed maximum price. So an overview of the presentation this evening. I'll start with an overview of the Headworks Renewal Project itself, the project major upgrades, our select the CMAR, Alman Shooty, and then overall project schedule. Then I'll go over the guaranteed maximum price and the elements that entails. I'll then go through the Headworks renewal amendments specific to this project. So an overview of those amendments, a graphic showing the progression of cost certainty that moving from the start to the end of the project, and then our current estimated capital costs, and ending with an overview of the next steps. So to orient everyone to what's on the screen here, this is the northeast quadrant of the plant. So off screen in this direction is EC, where we are right now. Payne Street runs along the right side of the screen here. Cemetery is up above, and then off screen below is 495. So the Headworks Renewal Project is focused on the Headworks plan. So all of our preliminary and primary treatment systems. Wastewater comes into AlexRenew from our various interceptors, all coming together at this point here, building A, where the first step in the treatment process is going through our core screens. After the core screens, wastewater flows to our raw sewage pumping station, which pumps wastewater up to building K, where it goes through our fine screens and grit removal systems. The screenings and grit removed from those two systems is conveyed to a truck loading bay on the south side of building K, where it's then transported off-site. Also in building K is our scum treatment system down in this bottom corner. That captures scum that is skimmed off the top of the primary and secondary settling tanks, and then concentrated and also hauled off-site. The wastewater, after it passes through building K, moves to our primary settling tanks, which, along with the above ground visible tanks, also has a set of primary sludge pumps in the underground gallery on the right side of the primary settling tanks. On the downstream side are where the primary weirs are located, where water flows over weirs and then goes into effluent channel to proceed through the process. We have the primary weir observation house covering those weirs to contain odors. And the last step of the Headworks Renewal Project is the repair of the primary effluent channel, where all that wastewater comes together and flows down to primary effluent pump station and then continues on through the process. That's kind of the 1,000-foot view. Diving a little bit deeper. Yep. Next slide. Along with some pictures of the equipment as we have it right now. The core screens will be upgrading to upgrading the two existing screens with new technology, and also adding a third core screen channel. The reason for the third core screen is to allow us to pass 120 MGD with one screen out of service. That gives us a layer of redundancy and resilience for the process. In similar fashion, we're upgrading the raw sewage pumps with new pumps, valves, and piping to also give a firm capacity of 120 MGD. What that looks like, we have 2 rows of 3 pumps each. We'll be able to meet 120 MGD pumping capacity with 2 in each row 2 pumps in each row in service, so 1 out of service on each side. In building K, our fine screens and grit removal systems are both being upgraded to more efficient and effective technology to take that debris out of the wastewater stream and avoid damage to equipment downstream in the process. And then we'll be improving both the grit and screen conveyors and upgrading the truck loading facility to right now it's just a truck parks in with like the several chutes that drop the screens and grit into back into the bed. We'll be upgrading that with automatic leveling roll-off containers to essentially have a single chute, but them just moving moving the container from side to side to automatically level the material in the bed. That's important so our staff don't need to go up and manually rake to level the equipment, which is both time consuming and can be hazardous. The scum concentrator that we have right now is being upgraded with scum screens. Again, this newer, more efficient technology. And then the primary rear observation house, you probably noticed in the picture a lot of corrosion on the inside of the roof panels. As I mentioned, this building captures a lot of the odors from the primary settling process, and those odors are themselves corrosive. So we're replacing this with new roof, new steel, rehabbing the steel equipment, lighting, also upgrading the odor control to better bring in fresh air and reduce they can more effectively carry away that odorous air. And lastly, the concrete in our primary effluent channel has similarly degraded due to the corrosive atmosphere. So we'll be tying that into the odor control system and also repairing the concrete and installing new covers to facilitate staff access across that area. Slide.
Before we move off this, by the way, this is a great, it's the right level of detail. What is the elevation of the settling tanks? I'm thinking in terms of, sea level rise and all that sort of thing. Are they at risk? Maybe 50 years from now?
The primary settling tanks are at ground level. It's elevated from road level by
4 feet or so?
4 feet. We did do a climate study. I'm not sure where those stands.
It's above 17.
Yeah, the secondary skip.
Okay, but the primary settling tanks are okay. Good to know. Is that coincidental when the building was built?
I don't know why they put that wall. Like 20.
Good to know.
Move that map. The secondaries are completely. Mr. Hill's referencing a presentation from last time where we presented on climate change to EPC. Under the secondary tanks, they're completely flooded out. Under a future 100 years. Primaries do not have the same level of flood.
Do you guys have any FEMA for the protection of the
No, we haven't. It's right now we're in the climate study phase. We haven't yet that into action. But the elevation we're working with when we're thinking through this project, we presented on climate 2 meetings ago, around 17.1 for protecting mainly our electrical equipment and access.
Thank you. So one less thing to worry about.
Question on regards to upgrade. Is there any way to quantify how improved the effluent will be once it leaves out of the headworks group of buildings compared to what is it now? 10% better, 20%, 1%? I mean, order of magnitude.
I don't know that we can put a specific percentage to it. Just that it'll definitely be better. I think the most visible improvement will be our maintenance crew will be much happier because currently we have a lot of issues with ragging in even just the primary sludge pumps. A lot of stuff currently gets passed to fine screens and gets caught in the pumps downstream, and our maintenance team has to be the one to go in and fix that. So the new fine screens are going to be, and particularly going to be much finer and like much more effective at removing that material. So we don't have an exact like percentage of how much better it'll be. We can't provide the pore size of the current versus the new. If you'd like.
I think the explanation you just given helps.
I think you all went through solid. We did a solids tour back in December. Remember when Mr. Carberry took us through solids and we kept that ball of stuff for you all in solids? That shouldn't get that far, right? That should be getting taken out building K. We shouldn't be getting that much ragging downstream. We shouldn't be getting that much ragging in sensory pretreatment. And we certainly shouldn't have 4 feet of solids in our secondary influent channel. A lot of that has to do with this equipment needing up.
So Ullman Shooty has been selected as our CMAR for the headworks renewal project. They received board approval to provide pre-construction services in July of last year, and they've been working closely with both us and GST, our engineer, in developing design and providing very critical and very helpful constructability feedback throughout the project. They have over 25 years executing wastewater projects in Mid-Atlantic with a regional office in Chantilly. They have extensive experience in construction of liquids process upgrades and active wastewater plants. The image in the background is actually from one of the other large projects with the same core screens that are going to be installed here. And they have experience with over 20 CMAR projects, including the AlexRenew's NMF, which is underneath the soccer field here. Slide gives an overview of the project schedule. Currently, we're at the tail end of second quarter 2025. We're you can see we're complete with procurement and preliminary design, and then coming up to a year pre-construction services and final design with our engineer and CMAR. We've also noted on the timeline here roughly where the amendments are expected to go to the board, and then construction will start at the beginning of 2026 and proceed through early 2031.
What is the level of design at this stage?
Sorry.
What is the level of design at this stage?
So the design is being progressed for each amendment. So the amendment 1 is at 90% design, which is where 90% for amendment 1. Amendment 2, we're in the process of finalizing 90% design. Then amendment 3 is I get working on 60%. 4, 5, and 6 are still it's still below that. They're around 30% and moving up from there. So just not sure how you would average out. It's kind of hard to average that. There's different sizes.
Yeah. Yes, I think the reason you see these amendments structured this way is because we wanted to get some of this early work done because it's necessary. We needed to get these upgrades in the ground as fast as possible. Because we're having some issues, as you all saw in solids, similar issues on headworks. Our lawsuit pump station. So through this procurement model, unlike your typical phase 1A, phase 1B, you can see on a progressive or other CMAR job, we're trying to do this with amendments to the guaranteed maximum price, all adding up to amendment 6, where we have the total GMP for the job. So by structuring this way, we're able to get work in the ground quicker than we would if we went through like a phase finalized design, go through phase 1A and phase 1B to get to the GMP. Yes.
This slide gives an overview of guaranteed maximum price. So guaranteed maximum price, or GMP, is set to not to exceed cost for how much the owner will pay to the contractor for the contracted work. Pie chart here shows a rough breakdown what's contained in the GMP, big slice of self-performed work, subcontracted work, and then contracted general conditions, followed by the pre-con services, contractor's fee, allowances, and contingency. This is like all these come together to make up the guaranteed maximum price.
Question on GMP, once you agree on a dollar amount, what happens with tariffs, changes in regulation? What kinds of things, and how do you come up major things, and how do you handle them?
Yes, we do our best to to account for those, and that's because we're working with the contractor, and like they're able to go out to their suppliers and like get a feel for how tariffs or other regulations might impact costs. If something fully unexpected occurs, we do have the option to to find an equitable solution to to covering additional costs that could not have been anticipated.
I think just there's a contractor contingency and an owner contingency in each one of these amendments. We're sending these up like, I'll call it a mini GMP. Each of these will have a contingency for both us and the contractor. And if it's a contractor, the contractor issue, they'll use their contingency. If it's something like a tariff, that's on us. We'll have to pay that out of our contingency. For the way the contract's set up. We owe like a tariff, but if it was a change orders, things like that will be coming out of our contingency through a typical change order process. So each one of these is like a mini GMP set up that way with its own contingency for us and the contractor.
At that time, we can
Right. I think the other important thing to mention is that the end of this will be a shared savings when we get to the final GMP. There'll be a shared savings discussion with the contractor on how we share savings on all of these various amendments leading up to the final GMP. That's the other unique aspect of the way that we structure it. We try and put most of it in contingency, and if we go over on the contingency, if we go over our change order amount, we'd have to come back to the board if we exceed that 25% of the contract for additional funds. We haven't gotten that yet on any job, but it's really relying on the contingency to cover those unforeseen events, and that is tied to Dr. Wong's point. That's tied back to our programmatic and project-specific risk assessments. Contractor does.
On a related note, what's included in contractor's general conditions? That's overhead? Got it.
This slide gives an overview of GMP amendments that we're anticipating for. The contract was initiated on board approval in July of last year with pre-construction services, and then we have 6 amendments constituting the GMP process for this project. The reason for that, for this breakout of these amendments, is as Mr. Carl alluded to, we want to get the really critical equipment rehabilitated first as soon as possible. In addition, some equipment, particularly electrical gear, has notoriously long lead times. So we want to get that start that procurement process as soon as possible, so it does not impact the schedule. So that equipment procurement is what is happening in Amendment 1, which will be presented for board review next month, July. Amendment 2 is some preliminary site work that's necessary for the utility relocation to extend the building and add a new a third core screen channel. That will be presented for board review in October of this year. Amendment 3 is the equipment, is the installation of early equipment that is particularly critical to plant operations. So are repairing the primary effluent channel as well as replacing the sludge pumps. And that underground gallery next to the primary settling tanks. Amendments 4, 5, and 6 that cover improvements to buildings A, K, and the primary settling tank respectively. And one of the main primary reasons for this the ordering is building A is going to be the longest portion of work, so we want to get that started first, and avoid pushing out the schedule. This slide shows graphically the evolution of cost certainty as it moved from early concept to completion of construction. The upper line shows the upper range of probable cost. The lower line is the lower range of probable cost, ranging from 100%, 50, all the way down to 0% cost certainty at the conclusion of the construction. Above the graph, these triangles show the location on in this progression of the initial contract, as well as each of the respective amendments, showing that we're essentially dialing in on the true project cost the closer we get to final completion of final design and construction completion.
This kind of answers your questions, so think about where we stand today, we're at maybe overall 30%. By the time we get to amendment 3, we're overall probably near 60 to 75%. By the time we get to amendment 6, we're at 100%. So that gives you an idea of the heavy design works in the back end of this job from amendments 4 through 6.
All right. Right now, we're estimating this whole headworks project at about 121 million, right? Give or take. And that's the black line there, right? Is that?
Yes. Like cost opinion.
So that could go up, go down as we advance, moving from left to right, right?
We're at cost. Yes. We're teetering, moving with cost. Yes, we're currently at cost.
The slide is down capital costs. So the pre-construction services and preliminary assessments are actual costs. The schematic and final design is proposed by the engineer, and then the resident engineer inspection and construction management services are both rough order magnitude estimates from the engineer CM respectively. CMAR amendments 1 and 2 those numbers are from the contractor's class 3 estimate. So those are, and then the remaining amendments are contractor magnitude. So because amendments 1 and 2 are much farther along the design, we have a tighter estimate on what those costs are. Only next steps. So July next month, amendment 1 needs to be to the board for review. A few months after that, in October, amendment 2 will then be submitted to the board. Followed by January 2026, we'll start the utility relocation work. That's authorized under amendment 2. In March, amendment 3 for the early equipment installation be presented to the board. Followed by the start of that work in April, and then late 2026 to 2027. The remaining 3 amendments will be put in front of the board, and then all the way out 2031, we have scheduled the final project completion. Slide, and that's the end of my presentation.
I've got to say, this is exactly the right level of detail to present to the board. it's really perfect. Because you're conveying what you're doing and you're presenting the risk and the cost associated with it. So it's really well done. So we got a ways to go. 2031, right?
But we've come a long way this year.
Yeah, no, things are happening. This is great. Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Chan. Moving right along to Commonwealth inflow infiltration study.
So, just a quick overview while we get the Cronin and Dr. Carver up to the front of the room. The city and AlexRenew have been coordinating for the last 18 months or so on the Commonwealth Interceptor infiltration study, infiltration and inflow study. And we're gonna maybe start off tonight. It's been a year, so we initially talked to the board last May about where we stood in this project as we kicked off the I&I study. Really, it's a modeling effort to determine what's effective in managing infiltration and inflow in the Commonwealth sewer shed. So tonight's an update on where we stand with respect to the study and next steps. With that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Cronin to pick things up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the opportunity to present here tonight. AlexRenew has been collaborating with the city, and Aaron and I are going to do a presentation on the Commonwealth Interceptor. As you know, the city of Alexandria is managed by three water entities. The American Water provides the water. The city provides the storm sewer service or collection system, sanitary system, and they operate the combined sewer system, with AlexRenew operating the interceptors and treatment plant. So just to focus the discussion, this is the AlexRenew's interceptor system within the city. Potomac Interceptor, Potomac Yard, Holmesburg Trunk Sewer. And tonight we're going to talk about the Commonwealth Interceptor. This is the separate sanitary service area. A small part of the service area is combined that kind of primarily comes in downstream of Duke Street. And to kind of, why are we focusing on this? So it's going to ask Aaron to present on the focus areas.
This shows, I don't know how many of you have seen this in the past, but we have heat maps. Anytime we have a really large event, we will receive through our Alex 311 system, basically issues that residents raise, whether it's flooding, whether it's sewer backups, and we take all that data from Alex 311 and we create these heat maps so that we know, is it something that's localized or is it something that's a bigger issue? So in this case, this is from a storm September 10th of 2020, where we had over 3.5 inches, 3.6 inches in around just over 40 minutes, so less than an hour. Very intense storm. And when all the calls started coming in from the community, we saw obvious patterns of where these complaints were located. So while we had some sparser, more discrete events out in the West End, what we saw is, areas of the city, especially areas that are served by the Commonwealth Interceptor, we saw large spread reports of flooding and sewer backups, which really indicate a significant capacity issue, not localized flooding issues, but system capacity issues. And so that's why, we are doing this, why the city is being undertaken, because this is where we have infiltration and inflow in the sewer system. It's also where we have flooding in our stormwater system. We had, from that storm, over 315 cases come in, discrete cases come in into our Alex 311 system. So a lot of data to develop this heat map. So when you're talking about out here, it's very, I would say maybe a stormwater inlet was blocked, created maybe some local flooding. But when we're talking about here, we're talking about large concentrations of flooding and sewer backups. And so I'm going to.
If you say capacity issue, what storm is?
That September storm was a 10-year storm.
10 years.
And Ed's going to talk a little bit now about how we size sewer systems, how we design our storm sewer systems, and how infiltration and inflow gets into our sanitary system.
I'm sure back to the area. I think just for Dr. Wong's understanding, when we're talking about this sewer shed, it's separate.
Separate.
Yeah, so
It's
the only combined sewer area we have. Go ahead.
Combined sewer area that is just this small corner here that comes in downstream of Duke Street, which has already been addressed by AlexRenew. And really what we're focusing on is the challenges along the Commonwealth, which is pretty much all sub-sanitary.
And these neighborhoods are, of older neighborhoods of the city, a lot of 1930s, 1940s construction.
So just a kind of a refresher of the standards that exist. So for separate sanitary system that's kind of regulated by the State Water Control Board oversight from the Virginia DEQ. The Virginia Code has the sewage collection and treatment regulations, SCAT regulations that kind of define the standard for how you size the interceptor systems and sanitary systems, where you're looking at 2.5 times your average daily flow. For storm systems, that's managed by the city. The city has their design and construction standards, and right now the city is targeting a 10-year level of service for controlling stormwater and flows into their sanitary system.
Question on the 10 years, is that a moving number as the intensity of storms increase? Are we going to see over time what a 10-year storm is? Basically, the volume in a 10-year storm is going to go up.
A lot of communities are starting to address that issue of adopting, increased standards. The NOAA has started to publish projections as to what those will be. And that's some of the things that we'll be discussing in some of our future upcoming meetings.
And the city's going through a flood resiliency effort, so that's being taken into consideration as part of that plan.
So inflow and infiltration. So when you think inflow, think it's going to rain, it's going to come off a roof, it's going to come down a downspout and directly into the sewer. That's not something that we want. That's sometimes happens. And then infiltration, think of as more indirect. So it rains, it goes through the ground, it finds a crack, finds a joint open. And that's how you're seeing the water get into the storm water get into the sanitary sewer system. So I'm going to stop here. Start.
illegal.
Are they the sources of inflow into the, on private property? Are those illegal connections?
Yeah.
So that was, so, you know, I mentioned a lot of these homes were constructed in the 30s and the 40s. They were not illegal connections at that time. Obviously, we don't allow those types of connections today, and we haven't allowed those types of connections since the code was amended in the early 1960s. But before that, those types of connections were allowed.
We have the inventory of those houses that were.
Yeah, we'll get to it. Yeah, we do have not 100% inventory, but a pretty good inventory to date.
So you'll see this section a couple of times. So this is a hydraulic profile. So this shows the pipe at the top of the ground, all the way down from the head of the Commonwealth interceptor up there at Caton Avenue down to the work. And what it shows is that, 2 times the dry weather flow, the pipe has capacity. So it meets the SCAP regulations for the design standard for the Commonwealth. So taking a look at some of the data that we collected from the flow meter data, you can see that our peak factor is at 2.5 times. So we're seeing measured peaks somewhere in the 5 to 6 range. Our dry weather flow is about 2.7 in the Commonwealth, with some of the peak flows kind of ranging from 15 to 17 from what we've seen in these 1 to 2 year storms. So how do you mitigate what are the technologies to mitigate, infiltration and inflow? The sewer rehab. So, for those cracks that you could see, the video showed, you can line the sewer. You can do that with a fold-in form. You put the liner in, it'll expand, and then it kind of seals off the cracks. You can put a pipe in there, it's on a slip lining, or you can replace the sewer. The city does have some.
You say cracks. Did you guys do the condition assessment?
So in areas where there is surcharging in the street, you could install a backflow preventer to kind of keep sewage from the street backing up onto the property. You could also, for these legacy, stormwater systems that Aaron talked about, there could be a disconnecting the roof leader from the sanitary sewer, just having it discharge into the yard. And then, you could look at upsizing the stormwater or the sanitary sewer system. And you could also, for the inflow that goes into the lid, you can put a manhole insert to prevent the direct stormwater from coming through the lid. So, as Mr. Carl had mentioned, we've been preparing the study, primarily focusing on characterizing the system and developing a model. And the main components is understanding the service areas, the areas that drain into the individual pipes. Aaron's going to go over that in a little bit more detail here in a minute. And then what we do is we put flow meters in the sewers to understand each of the sheds so that we can calibrate the model. And then we can start using the tool as looking at ways to kind of reduce some of the INI system. I'll turn it over to you.
The city has done some inflow and infiltration work in the past, and part of that study involved at all of the homes in the Commonwealth sewer shed to identify the stormwater sources into the sanitary sewer. And so we were able to complete survey for about just over 80% of the homes. Obviously, you need to have access to the full home and able to do the characterization. So we surveyed over 5,000 homes, and out of those 5,000 addresses, 685, we were able to confirm sources of inflow into the sanitary sewer. And we generally did that through dye testing. So we would see a source, and then you can, so about 14% of the properties have this, these I&I connections. As I mentioned, these are old neighborhoods, you know, pre-1963 when we updated our code. So the different types of sources include like driveway drains, if drain at the end of the driveway, what we would do is we would put like dye into the sewer, like, you know, very fluorescent dye, put in some water, and we would just pop open a sanitary manhole and just wait for the dye to see if the dye would show up. So that's how we were able to confirm these sources. We would see a yard drain, but sometimes we'd find yard drains that were connected. Most of the time they were connected to the stormwater as they should be, but sometimes to the sanitary. We were able to test downspouts. And then finally, basement drains. Now these aren't basement connections. Obviously there's basement floor drains inside the homes, but these are basement floor drains outside the homes when people have basements and they have a stairwell that goes down. We tested those as well. Next slide. And so out of those 685 inflow sources, the vast majority, 92% were these basement area drains. They were very, very common in this area. Not only like a couple of yard drains, a handful of driveway drains and roof leaders, but most of them were these basement area ways that we found that were connected. So what we did, so we took all of this data and then we basically put it into the model. So Ed's going to talk a little bit about how you take this data to come up with essentially a flow rate to put it into the model to see what the impacts are.
Sorry, what's the yellow diamond icon?
Oh, yeah. So these are along, so as part of the data collection effort, we have flow meters in the system. So those are the location of some of the flow meters we have in our the city's collection system.
So determining the inflow rate. So inflow, again, that's what rain is going to go directly into the sewer. So there's a formula that's commonly used in engineering that to calculate the flow based on really it's unitless, but it's really like a percent imperviousness. Rainfall is the intensity of the rain and then the area. So if you look at the area of a rooftop or the area of a driveway, and you can calculate how much water is directly going to inflow into the sewer. So we could take the data that the city had collected. Maybe before I do that, these are the diamonds that we talked about. You mentioned earlier. So what we did is we identified based off of the GIS where the larger areas were on the city's trunk lines and put some flow meters in October of 2023, which augmented some of the AlexRenew's longer flow meters on the Commonwealth, which have been installed in 2019. And so each one of these meters has its own meter shed that we can look at individually, and we'll calibrate the model at each one of those meter locations. Now, what do we do with all this data? So we take the data that all those inflow points, all those areas that where rain can fall, and we sum them up. So we come up with that direct inflow that we can then put into the modeling and then understand what the response was. And then we look at the infiltration sources. These are the ones that are not direct, where we look at the laterals that are coming from the house to the sewer and then the sewer itself that's in the street. And then we add them all up. And then so you'll see the dry weather flow pattern, you'll see the rain, and then you'll see what the peak flow is in the pipeline or at the meter location. And then we'll compare it to the meter. So this is the kind of the jagged line is the actual meter location. And we're trying to, when we calibrate the model, we want the model to be able to predict weather response during that event. And so we're trying to make sure the peak matches, the width matches, and we look for multiple storms to make sure we get good correlation between flow rates. And then because we added a model, the detail that the city provided into the model, we can then find out what is the impacts of each of the sources. And one of the things that we found was the inflow sources really didn't make as much of an impact as we thought. And you break it down into a pie chart, the inflow sources is really like.
You go back and walk through each of the lines. Right.
So I'll start from the bottom. So this little piece right here is the inflows that are coming into the system. Those are the rain leaders, the driveway drains, and so forth. And then the next line is the lateral. The lateral is the connection from the house to the sewer that's in the street. And then which was the second biggest source. The biggest source of it was the sewers themselves. They're bigger diameter. They're out in the street. So, and then you add all of those up, including the dry weather flow, and that's how you get to the peak. So,
Yeah. I'm good. I'm good.
so looking at, the flow rate of, kind of towards the end of the Commonwealth, and what was the peak flow, kind of one of our monitored events. We see that the inflow sources make up about 1% of the total flow, with the infiltration into the sewer and then the infiltration into the lateral making up the majority of the source of the ion. Which,
So you showed a video in the beginning of that. But the video doesn't jive with the model. The model doesn't agree with the video. We should modify the video.
I agree with you.
Yeah, it's like most of the videos, like, look at all these types of inflow. Also, there's infiltration
Right.
in like one sentence. Yeah.
So maybe to pause for a moment, this was surprising, I think, to
Mhm.
when we did the calibration, and we did see that the majority of these sources are coming in through infiltration. Well, I mean,
64%.
Sorry?
64%.
what was the percent? No, it's 99%.
99% is from lateral
Infiltration.
Infiltration.
based off of.
There could be some inflow into the manholes themselves, and we've been installing manhole inserts to try to block that, so that is one source of inflow on the public side that we do have.
So going to the modeling. So I think the first thing, we're going to match the city's design criteria and level of service using the 10-year, 24-hour storm. We're assuming that the city's stormwater, the major stormwater improvements are completed. And then we're river renews in service. You'll see some of that. So we looked at really 4 scenarios with the dry weather flow, and then we looked at 3 wet weather scenarios. But let me just kind of go through the top of this table. So these are the scenarios, and we looked at no improvements, full rehab, and increasing the interceptor. And then in each one, we made assumptions that looked at, on the public sewer side, what was the percentage of the infiltration reduction we were going to target for that scenario. And then the city really has access to the public streets, right? So the city-owned laterals is something that you could rehab and get access to, where it's more difficult to do on private property, whether it's the private laterals, infiltration reductions, or the private inflow.
The quick question is, the city lateral from the city pipe in the street to the edge of the property line, and then the private lateral is from the property line to the house?
It's to the edge of the curb. So the way it's written in the city code is that anything that was constructed before July 1st, 1955, the city has the ownership from the connection to the main up to the curb line. And then beyond the curb line is the property owner. And then anything that's after July 1st, 1995, the property owner has it from their house all the way to the connection. The city is only connection only.
And that's the definition used in private and public.
Yes.
laterals. Yeah, okay.
So the first scenario, the wet weather scenario that you'll look at, is no improvements, where it's just the existing Commonwealth with river renew, and then no INI reduction. The next scenario we looked at was full rehabilitation. What does that mean? So that's lining every sewer. That's lining every sewer in the street. And for the city-owned laterals, so if you line all of the sewers, replace the sewers, you can get about half of the INI out, even if you do all of the rehab. And again, for that second scenario, we did not assume any private lateral INI reduction or any inflow reduction. And then the last scenario that we looked at was increasing the interceptor. What size interceptor would we have to be able to pass the flows in that 10-year design storm? So looking at the results, so this is the hydraulic profile. Hydraulic grade line is the engineering term. It really just looks at the depth that's in the sewer. And in dry weather, the existing Commonwealth has capacity. In the 10-year storm, we see the hydraulic grade line or the water depth surging above grade around Braddock, with the backwater from Braddock back up to Peyton. And you can see that the host run interceptor that was recently installed provides good conveyance for the combined sewer flows that are on the downstream side, and kind of took a lot of the backwater that occurred from the downstream end, by the wet weather pump station, kind of created this lower the hydraulic grade line to kind of give as much benefit as we could upstream. But it's the existing conditions still showing surcharging upstream due to the lack of the capacity of the interceptor to be able to handle those flows. So scenario 2 is if we had full rehab, we really got back inside the pipe of the existing system, where you're showing the hydraulic grade line either at the ground of the sewer or below the grade, all the way down to the end. And what would it look like if we increase the size of the Commonwealth? You'd be patching those flows at the crown or less. Primarily, the upgrade would have to go from Duke Street up to.
Maybe a pod. Last time we presented this to the board, we weren't quite sure the reach that we had to upsize. We didn't have a full definition of where we needed to go. I think it's highlighted here that the upsize, if that's something we proceed with, would go from Duke to Braddock. So that's new information. I think you might be glossed over a little bit if you go back to the slide. Full rehabilitation within flying city storage. Back one more. It's 201,000 or more. Or back to that slide. That one. It's like 201,000 linear feet of storage, like 30. No small feet. You're finding 2,200 laterals on top of that, and installing the manhole inserts in 1,500 manhole. The pipes, when you're thinking about pipelining, 27 these projects are big and impactful. So when the board to understand that full rehab isn't, going out and throwing, a manhole insert here or there, or going out there and putting it's literally lining every pipe in that switch.
But I didn't hear it. You said you have a good inventory of those houses that are quote unquote illegally connected. You said that was the standard back then. I didn't hear an option in the warning, basically considering those disconnected and showed how much was social.
That was only 1% of the problem. So it seems like that's not.
To me, I think 99%.
So this isn't the first time, I guess, we've done some modeling of infiltration and inflow. The city has done some lining in the past. And we'll talk a little bit about upcoming work as well. But we had done the same thing where we had put flow meters in the system, had done this survey, we had input it into the model. It was in the single digits, in looking in terms of the I&I, it was like, depending on kind of what storm we were modeling, it was in the sort of like the 3 to 5% range. So it was very similar results to what we had here, which I think surprised us back then as well.
I think to Aaron's point, Dr. Wong, what is not shown here is what would be coming in from ponded stormwater on the street that would be getting into the manholes and getting into the sector that way. That is right now quantified in the light blue or dark blue area. So we're not showing that's private inflow. from private properties. Not public inflow. That could be another piece of the pie chart, but what?
Yeah.
More difficult to quantify.
Right.
So you're confident in the modeling results? I mean, Dr. One sounds skeptical of the 1% estimate.
And I mean, I guess there's a slide, it was more in the beginning. It was a table that showed the peak, you know, from what we have from our monitoring so far, where we're seeing peaks for like a 1-year storm on the order of about like 5 to 6, that type of range. And I think these storms, yeah, this is like a 1 to 2 year storm. I will say, when I started my time, not as a city employee, but working as a consultant for the city over 20 years ago, we were seeing for similar storms, higher peaks. It was more like 10 times. And we've done some lining that was done in the, basically in the 2000s, about 2005 range, that time frame, 2005 to 2008, we did quite a bit of some lining then. And we did see a reduction in the I&I. We measured it with the flow monitoring. So we had pre-lining flow monitoring, post-lining flow monitoring, and we did see, so we aren't getting those for like and we were looking at like a 1-year storm, and we were having a peak to average of 10. So we do see some reduction in I&I, but it's still an excessive amount that is in the system.
So back to, I guess, the question about the model up there. I think maybe the model for the private inflow source is completely dependent on the inflow connection survey that Aaron presented here. This is our best data we have to input this into the model, and I think, you know, it's a good percentage of the homes that were assessed. I don't know, Aaron, if you mentioned when this was done, but a good area of the homes within the shed were assessed. And 700 were found to have inflow connections. 700 is a lot when you think about the number. So when you take 700 and jump to the modeling results, it makes sense.
Question. That, I understand that did not include interior basement drains. You didn't have access to.
So we didn't have it yet. All of our surveys were conducted on the outside of the home because we were looking for inflow sources,
Because they
right?
wouldn't be
Inflow source-
capturing stormwater.
We're trying to capture the storm. Yes, exactly.
So just to make sure I understand these charts, so we're looking at two. You know, there's the no improvements one, but that's baseline. So there's the full rehab one and the increase in the interceptor. So the one that shows the what would happen if you increase the interceptor. These are either or, right? Like this is looking at only if rehab, no increase of the interceptor size, and then the second one looks at increase the interceptor size, no rehab. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Did you look at any sort of, I guess that wouldn't make sense. I was wondering if you could like combine, but
We thought about that.
I'm not sure that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I think that way it's done.
Yeah. So, I mean, what I'm kind of taking away from these two charts is that either approach would solve the problem, but increasing the size of the interceptor is much easier. But
I think that's the next phase of the assessment.
okay, so I'm jumping ahead then, and that's make an assumption. Okay.
We also get a cost comparison.
And not if you live on Cumberland Mountain.
That's where we're going.
Well, no, but it's, I mean, 38 miles of pipe is a lot of pipe to line.
And Aaron, by the way, this is excellent. I live in that section of Delray. This is the pipe lining that we're talking about, the 40 or so miles of pipeline. How long does that last?
So I will say, we did lining in the Commonwealth Basin, in 4 Mile Run in the 2000s. We have gone back and re-inspected them. or either we've re-inspected or we're still in the process of inspecting, depending on where we're at with our program, and they have held up very well.
Okay.
So we don't need to rehab the rehab that's already been done. It's more about what hasn't been done.
How many miles did we do in that program?
So I'm gonna have to go back and get the exact numbers, because when I think of everything we've done, I'm thinking of citywide. So there was a lot that we did out, even though it's newer areas of the city, there was a lot we did out in the west end.
Say this sewer shed when we did.
So I'll get you the numbers except for these exact sewer
That'll
sheds.
give
'Cause
you more magnitude of having lived through it when we did it.
Yeah.
Whether it's 1/10 of what we need or whether it's 50% of what we need.
So generally, in terms of a percentage wise, I can say we've done about a quarter of it. We've lined about a quarter of it. We haven't lined the remaining 3/4. So in terms of, I forget exactly how many miles that is. I'll have to go back and look, but we've done, I think, around 25 to definitely no more than 30%, but so less than a third we've lined in these
Frankly,
neighborhoods.
My memory going through it, it wasn't, to the community, it wasn't that painful.
Yeah.
Because it's not trenching, it's not digging up.
That's
It's-
true.
Somebody comes in and puts the stuff. down
But
and heats
the,
it.
the lining process does emit fumes that some people are very sensitive to, and there have been some studies showing that can have negative health
Yeah,
impacts.
and what you're referring to is the styrene. It's the resin,
Yeah.
right? It's what
It can make
helps
people
to
feel very
to
sick.
basically, so that the liner adheres to the host pipe. We've changed our practices back when we did lining. So we did lining in these two areas in the 2000s, and around 2010, we did some lining in this area. And back then we used what's known as steam cure. So it's basically hot air, and that pushed a lot of those fumes. We have now changed to UV cure. So it's just a different process. While we still use the styrene, it's a much shorter curing time, and it doesn't emit the odors and push the odors like the steam cure did. So the number of odor complaints that we've had since using it has decreased drastically. There are some situations where we still have to do steam cure, and a lot of that has to do with the manhole structure itself. Our city standard manholes, they're 4 foot in diameter, and you can get all the equipment you need. The UV train, it's bigger than what we've used in the past. So sometimes we can't fit it in there. So we've had a small number of pipes, probably less than 1%, where around 1% that we've had to use that traditional steam cure because the UV wouldn't work.
It's regulated.
I'm sorry, regulated? The styrene? Yeah, and so we do follow, all of the regulatory requirements. We're allowed to do steam cure. But because of the complaints that you referenced that we received in the past, that's why we made the switch to UV.
Sure, I've got a question. I understand lining 38 miles of pipe is a pretty heavy lift, but some of these sewers are approaching 100 years of age.
They are.
So there needs to be ongoing maintenance. Now, it may not be, it can't be done all at once, but there still needs to be ongoing maintenance. Does the city have, it looks like you're doing everything in the area that you've got,
So we're
either in construction or.
Yeah, I will say we are budget bound. So these numbers that are shown here, so this is our current program, and these numbers reflect what we're inspecting, not necessarily what we're rehabilitating. Just to make that clarification. And because we do have a capital, we do program this annual, we have annual money in our capital improvement program, but we can't do it, let's say, all at once. And so we focus on those sewers that we think are contributing the highest amount of I&I based on the condition of those sewers. So that's where we focus our efforts to get the biggest bang for the buck.
Are you asking because, I was wondering too, do any of these pipes rise to the standard of needing to be replaced? Like, if they're so badly damaged or
Yeah,
that lining
the
doesn't.
vast majority of them can be lined. At the vast majority of them. Anything that we feel can't be lined, we do replace manhole to manhole. We do sometimes do emergency point repairs, which may be like a 5-foot section of pipe, but that's usually, and a lot of times that's usually emergency driven. So we do those point repairs as well.
You're doing some new lines down at Linden and Mount Vernon Avenue.
So so there's
Line going in there.
Maple Avenue, we're doing a full replacement because we had a lot of basement backups along Maple Avenue. And our modeling showed that those sewers just did not have capacity. So lining, there's no point to line it if the sewer doesn't have capacity. So that's why we're doing upsizing there. It's not really a condition assessment issue. It's a capacity issue. So we are doing in Del Rey right now, we are doing some upsizing projects based on those sewers being under capacity.
This is excellent. Well, no, I mean, your choice is a hard one or a worse one. I mean, you know, there's no easy answer here.
And then it kind of highlights our next steps are really looking at that alternatives evaluation. How long would it take? What would it take? You're coming up with what that schedule is, or you got to for whichever alternative. But just kind of summarizing the takeaways, the city data is showing that the inflow sources are not a significant source of the I&I. Any alternative to address I&I, the city stormwater, the big system upgrades need to be complete. And whether it's liming or increasing the capacity, that either option will work. We also need to keep an eye on if you make it bigger, how much more water are we bringing to the plant when we're kind of at reaches the city's allocation.
It's true. If you line the pipe, it prevents the water from coming to the plant, but increasing the size of the interceptor would not.
That's kind of teeing us up for sort of the next phase of this. We're not treating stormwater flows. We are working with the city and Fairfax on, upgrading our plant for an additional 4 MGD of flow. Do we really want to be taking up that capacity that we're building with stormwater?
Mhm.
Or is the Charlottesville approach the right approach to get the I&I out? So it's going into the correct sewer that's supposed to be going. So I think that's something that we have, at top of mind as we enter into this next phase. Again, I think all of us were a bit surprised by the modeling results, but when we go back and look at the assessment, not that many homes have connections into systems. So yes, some of that could be I&I through a manhole, but again, I think we're here tonight just to present the results of this first phase of not just modeling, but also 6 years of data collection on our side, 2 years of data collection, at least working with the city on the city side to support this model. As Mr. Cronin noted, I think what we want to go through is show what an alternative evaluation looks like, put cost to it, put schedule to it, put impact to it, recommend a plan jointly like we did tonight, and finalize the
And in the scheduling, are you looking at how fast it would be from an engineering and implementation point could be put in place, as opposed to funding restrictions, which is, artificial. It's an artificial. It's, I don't mean that in a pejorative term, but it's artificial in a sense. It's what the city says their sewer rate will be and how much money you can have and how much they're willing to borrow. That's very flexible. Yeah. So I would say to me that looking at it at how fast feasibly could it get done and the cost, and then figure out how to pay the financing for it and how you pay for an acceleration. If that's the answer, it can be done later, right? Assumptions made now.
Mr. Carl mentions Charlottesville. So the Ravenna Water Sewer Authority, similar to AlexRenew, serves the city of Charlottesville and Elmhurst County. I did an I&I study 2005. So unbelievable, it's 15 years ago. But the two jurisdictions.
It's 2025 now.
Oh. 20 years ago. So in that study was, the city was really leaky. You know, they had, Lauren Hildebrand came in and she was great. She really kind of brought a lot of effort into, you know, lining the city system. They had so much smoke coming out of the bank of one of their streets that closed an intersection. They were having peak factors in double digits, and they were able to avoid upgrades at the treatment plant because Charlottesville got the ions, County too. And but it almost became a competition. And so every 5 years we would update the model. And the city just marched their way down. And I think it depends on the system. It's not one size fits all. It's got to fit the work. It's got to fit the problem with the sewers. It's got to fit funding restrictions. But I think with effort, you can do it. It's just how much it was 20 years ago. Took them a lot, it took them time to get down to where they had it under control. It was also coupled with upgrades. They coupled the capacity of the downstream pump stations. They increased the treatment plant capacity by 10 MGD. So it came with, it's not just one thing that's just going to solve the whole problem. It's going to be something you have to find that balance. And that's what's next.
Just a couple of things. I want to just applaud the seriousness and the detail with which you did this. And natural thing is, let's just expand the interceptor, right? And this, I think, sheds a lot of light on possible ways to go. The only guidance I'd give, a very broad guidance, is look 50 years ahead. What is the right, as you evaluate the alternatives, which alternative places us in a better spot? Us not being AlexRenew, but us being the community 50 years from now. That's a hard one. That's a hard one. This is excellent. This is excellent. So more to come, right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving right along, and you're right on track, more or less. Monthly report, Mr. Carl.
All right, so tab 10 in the monthly report, I think this section 1.5 on the bottom of page 2. Update on the nutrient reduction procurement. Our RFP goes out next month in July. We expect proposals in September and contract then to bring it to the board in January. That's sort of that's the fourth program under the phase forward umbrella that we have not yet secured. That is progressive design for. It's like CMAR, but having a contract designer. Section 1.5 at the top of page 3. We put out a community outreach and communication services RFP. Similar to what we did with the job order contract, we're looking at upgrading our website, but we're also looking for a full suite of communication support to support Ms. B and Mr. Robertson and team. On June 3rd, we received 28 proposals. So we are likely going to take our time to get through all of those, to call them. And right now, we originally had planned to bring it to the board in September, but we might bump that to October, given the overwhelming response we've had. So board approval for that in October. I'll turn it over to Mr. Robertson to talk through section 5.2, 5.3, 5.4, maybe 6 to 8 for delinquencies, average, and that.
So under 5.2, the number of delinquent accounts decreased by 18 overall, and saw another decrease. Total amount owed by 26,000. I've been seeing kind of a slow decrease in this delinquent accounts and delinquent owed as well. Something to point out just under that in the paragraph below, is we now have $632,000 in scheduled payments through payment plans, which represents about 65% of our current arrearage for May. So that's the new high bar for basically the percentage we have accounted for by. So a good thing, and also a good thing for our customers, but it will kind of slowly recoup our funds. Something else to point out here is we did 45 disconnections for non-payment last month. That's the highest we've done in several months. In part because Virginia American Water has finally had the resources to perform those disconnections. Also, we were not slowed down by any sort of weather events or holidays or cold weather. So that's part of the driver there. That did account for 21 folks paying their balance. Full 15 enrolled in payment plans, 1 account closed, and 8 applied for element disbursement. If you go to section 5.3, just to walk through a few of the community engagement things that we did last month. Our chief engineering officer, Felicia, beyond, attended Douglas MacArthur Elementary School and read our newest book to third graders. So that's part of that series where we were going to elementary schools. We went to, I believe, 4 or 5 elementary schools. They were very well received at each. Thank you to all of the board members that attended Huff's Run Dedication Day. I think it was a tremendous success. We had great attendance despite the weather. Everybody kind of came out there. The last second, the sun poked out. It was a
I
great.
saw the hand of God.
Yes.
Yeah, no,
That was divine intervention, I think.
it was great. I was shocked at how many people came in the last 5 minutes. Really filled the stands. That was really cool. AlexRenew also received the Government Finance Officers Association certificate again. So that's for the 18th time. Something else to celebrate. We welcomed an estimated 615 visitors from a variety of groups last year. And then we also provided tours to the stormwater department for the city of Alexandria. And all good stuff. A lot of community involvement last month. Then we jump over to the few things to highlight here as well. We set a new record for both the number of customers assisted as well as the amount that we dispersed. So you can see, I think in July it will be particularly a year with dispersing that. And you can see that people are starting to recognize the program. I think we'll see ups and downs, but I think we're starting to see this great program. If you turn to the next page, again, you can kind of see the same trend that we've seen in a few of these census tracks that are really taking advantage of. It's not necessarily tied to the SNAP ratio, but you can still see the trends in specific areas. And then if you go to the last page, I had to shorten the amount of data we put on the dashboard, which I think is a good trend again. But this is simply 1 month this time because we gave out 22 disbursements. It just gets kind of hard to plot anything more. Good trend overall. The other thing I would point out is there were quite a few customers this month in particular that had high balances that were taking leave disbursements. So I think that's also a good trend. We're starting to hit some of the customers that have any arrearage over a long time. That did drop sort of the average and median here of the percentage that it's covering of their total arrearage value. I think overall.
I have a question, but not related to those sections. More on table 5.1. Question more for Ms. Sheehan or Ms. Kube. At table 5.1, the revenue section of the table. I think I know what's going on with debt proceeds and other sources. I think it's just a timing thing. Difference between where we are on budget versus year to date.
It
delayed.
Yes, the Drawn River.
Drawn River Renew, right? Okay.
Don't
So,
forget, we didn't update that. We did not update our cash flow until this year. Once we got our change order executed to extend, spread the money out. That's that 92 million that got shifted from this year to next year, 96 million.
okay, so the
So
budget,
that's in here.
so the budget was based on the previous timelines.
Right.
Got it. I'm with you. I figured that's what it was. I figured it was
It's
just
gonna get
timing.
spent.
It does make sense.
It's gonna get spent, but it's just gonna be later.
But I figured, we want to be sure. Yeah. Good, thank you, thank you.
The River New dashboard, again, I echo Mr. Robertson's comments. Mr. Hill, thank you for understanding the event. We were very appreciative. We do that, and thanks for all the board members for attending. You know, we talked a little bit about this as staff. Some of us have been through all of them from the very first community listening session at and this event for us, all the way through the Hazel events, this one just felt really special to the team. And it probably had the most impact on us overall. You know, we celebrated a huge tunnel boring machine coming out of the ground and launching it. This was probably the most special one for staff.
Let's stay on this topic for a while, because I felt the same way. What I was struck by, but I want other board members to jump in and others to jump in as well. This felt more like a real community event and not an AlexRenew engineering event. And it also felt, I just felt the community owned this solution more than AlexRenew, and that's a good thing, right? How do others feel?
It was not, I mean, the Hooks Run is by itself a great engineering accomplishment.
It is, yeah.
But I do not think most of the people there were as impressed by that as they were by the restoration of the stream and the attention that we paid to the cemetery there, history of it. And there's something just really special that you're doing a capital improvement project that has that effect on the community.
My only comment is that you guys have a lot of citizens understanding. Very proud to have them. I tell you, when I went down to Clean Rivers, we had many people from Alexandria, they were upset. Why you tell me? I forgot, but I said, these guys do a very good job. They were very, very, they say, if they knew we were gonna attend. Job.
I just marvel at how when the ASA changed its name to AlexRenew, I had folks in my friend group who had no idea what AlexRenew was. And they saw the bills coming from Cincinnati and they thought it was like spam. And now you look at the role that AlexRenew is playing in this city and how it's embraced. It really, and that's all within, what, 10 years or so? Give or take, 10 years? An incredible accomplishment. So kudos to everybody and very well done.
I think there were also lessons when we do a similar event for Pendleton. It's a different circumstance, but there's history that's there and it's on that site. And with, how do you get the kind of community more as a part of it rather than being here's a piece of infrastructure that's.
Yeah, it was wonderful engineering, and which it is, but it's also community too. Very well done. Anybody want to jump in? We're good. Any other business?
No, sorry. Just Looking through the dashboard, really cool picture, bottom right of page 3 of the wet weather fund. Pretty awesome to see these things go from the surface to underground. Page 3 of the river dashboard. You can see we're keeping up with our planned and actual progress. We already talked about Brook Run, Pendleton Street winding down. Jumping forward, spend to date 510.8, bottom of page 4. Nothing much upcoming. We are working on an additional book that should be out hopefully by the end of the year. On the back page, I do want to highlight this because the team is really proud of it. You know, back in May, we placed 360 cubic yards of the concrete in each slab of a screening shaft. So we no longer have an open hole in the plant. We're going to cover across the screening shaft, and that's also starting the foundation for the superstructure above that. Really neat picture again to see us transitioning underground to above ground, moving on to the 84 dashboard. Again, we're keeping track of costs on the bottom left, spending today as well as local spend. I think the only thing we really wanted to highlight here is that we are now actually under construction on the biosolids diversification project. In the backside of the page, we are demolishing a lime silo, so it's a really exciting time for staff and building all. We're taking a lime silo. It's 7 stories tall, so it's not like just pulling a tank out of a building. It's 7 story tall lime silo and the conveyor system associated with it, putting that out of building L, and that will go through the Oh, board retreat. Are we, so February 20th to 21st, is everybody good for the board retreat? We will be doing a half day Friday with building momentum, governance games led by Ms. Waters. Team building, and then you're going to build a catapult, and then day 2 is ribbon preview. And one last thing, just one, Ms. Waters will be on show tomorrow to give an update on her congressional briefing on people.
ANAQUA, our trade association, is hosting a congressional briefing. It's for Senate and House. They provide some refreshments, and they usually get staffers to come. And this is about PFAS and particularly circle liability. So I'll be representing AlexRenew and wastewater, but there'll be somebody there for drinking water, works, academia. And the passive receiver phrase is catching on, and heard Administrator Zeldin use it, but it requires some explanation. We may be passive receivers of PFAS from the standpoint of we don't create it, we don't profit from it, but we're very active partners in solving the issues related to PFAS. So I'll go over how we meet our permit requirements, we go beyond that, what we're doing in biosolid study, how we're sampling quarterly, sampling our SIUs, and talk about how we are partnering to solve this problem. And what won't help us is if we're brought into a cost recovery action under CERCLA. We'll just be trying to use attorneys and insurance coverage to get out using our available defenses rather than being able to put that time and money toward a solution. So I got 5 minutes to say that.
One fast.
Just for the board, we'll likely be coming to give an update ahead of the General Assembly session once we get alignment with the other authorities and municipalities across the state about how we're approaching PFAS in the state of Virginia. How we've been at the forefront of that with AlexRenew and trying to get consensus to kind of move forward and start testing. And so stay tuned for that. Either September or October, we'll be giving you all an all of it.
Your motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second? All in favor? Enjoy Ireland.
You're on vacation again?
Again,
Did you just go somewhere?
I mean, like 2 months ago.